Stanley Cup, Scott Morrison reflects.
It might not be the biggest trade deadline deal ever made, but it was certainly one of the best. The first to have the kind of impact general managers can only dream about. And it was a trade, at first, Butch Goring wished hadn't happened.
I was really unhappy. I was really just in the second year of a 6-year contract with the LA Kings and signed it with the purpose of playing my entire career in LA. I mean, how can you not like playing in LA? I mean, you get out of the rink, it's warm, you're driving a convertible, and life is good. And then to learn that I had been traded, I really didn't care who it was to. I just was really upset. I had a lot of fans, a lot of family, and I was happy in LA.
On March 10th, 1980, Goring was traded for winger Billy Harris, the Islanders' first ever draft pick, and defenseman Dave Lewis. After the initial disappointment, the 29-year-old Goring quickly realized the Islanders were a team that had hit a wall of great expectations the previous 2 springs, but something special could still be on the horizon.
Everybody knew what the New York Islanders were all about. I mean, this is a team that finished first overall the year before in 1979, and I knew they had a legitimate chance to win a Stanley Cup without me. They were that good. So, you know, when I look at it, I go, you know what? I didn't think I was going to win one in LA, but now I had a chance.
Islanders general manager Bill Torrey believed he was just a player or 2 away from finally winning big. He needed a second-line center to take the pressure off Brian Trottier. Goring, like Torrey, was confident he could be a difference maker, on and off the ice.
Well, one of the reasons they brought me in is because they knew exactly what they were getting. They knew I was going to be a good fit on that second line. I think they felt I was going to be able to provide offense. I was going to be able to give them some penalty killing also, because I worked on all facets of my game, and obviously I played a good brand of hockey. So I don't think they were too surprised about, you know, what I would bring on ice. I think they were a little surprised what I brought off ice, because I was a carefree individual, and I wasn't going to change who I was. It was just a different attitude that I brought to the dressing room that maybe they didn't have before. They were a very serious group, and so I became kind of the lighthearted guy in the room.
Were the Islanders almost the team that was afraid of losing going into those playoffs?
The interesting thing about the Islanders, what I noticed right away, is coming into their dressing room, there was a completely different feeling, and it wasn't about, the talk was never about losing. There was a legitimate fear or legitimate expectations of winning. I mean, that was the only thing that was in that dressing room, and you could sense that pressure once I walked in there. When you look at it over the 2 previous years, they'd been very, very successful and just hadn't found a way to, you know, to win the big one.
After Goring arrived, the Islanders were unbeaten in their final dozen games of the regular season. But when the 1980 playoffs began, they were feeling the pressure to win, and there was a game in the first round that was a turning point for the franchise, ultimately the start of a dynasty.
What was the emotion when you finally won that first cup?
There wasn't the celebration you might think, because once we went inside the dressing room, everybody was exhausted. I mean, they could hardly move. The place was jammed with people, family, fans. The guys could hardly move. But they were mentally drained. They were so tired. They just didn't quite know how to celebrate. Everybody was exhausted, smiles on their face, but exhausted.
Once the Islanders won that first Stanley Cup, winning became a habit. Goring was a huge part of the second championship the following spring, winning the Conn Smythe Trophy.
As difficult as it was to win the first cup, it was a breeze to win the second cup. I mean, that team never took a deep breath. All the pressure was off. They understood exactly what they had to do to win a hockey game, and they just went about their business. That team was just so good, was so relaxed and so confident.
Over the years, there have been trade deadline deals that have been difference makers. But in many ways, the Goring trade might still be the best, because it helped lead to 4 consecutive Stanley Cup wins, almost 5, and a record 19 straight playoff series victories.
Well, the bottom line is that we won 4 cups. We won all 4 in a row, and you know, so till that next trade can match that, then you know, I think I can hold the crown and say, yeah, you know what, the Islanders got the best result.
Butch right now does commentary work for the New York Islanders and their television broadcaster, Scott Morrison. What did he bring to the New York Islanders that was so important
Well, I think what he talked about in the piece is that he brought a different attitude to the dressing room. He was lighthearted. It was a very stressful place because the Islanders had hit the wall a couple of times, underachieving in the postseason. And one of the first things he did the day he walked in, and they lost a couple of popular players in that trade, and that's an awkward situation for a guy coming in. But the first thing he said to the room was, he said, "Guys, do you realize how good you are?" He says, "Because the rest of the league does. Let's just figure out a way to win now." And it kind of broke the ice there. And then he was, as I say, had a great temperament in the room. And it helps, too, to fit in when you go on and win or undefeated over the final dozen games of the season going into those playoffs.
Okay, in the dressing room, he relaxes the players, he motivates them. What about on the ice, the impact?
Well, he brought a lot on the ice because he, offensive skills, he played on the second line, took a lot of pressure off Brian Trottier on the first line, could kill penalties, and really, maybe the most impactful game he had for that franchise, certainly in that first year after arriving in the deal, was in the first round of the playoffs. A lot of pressure on the Islanders because they'd failed the two previous springs, upset by the Leafs and then the Rangers. And they got into that first round playing, ironically, the Los Angeles Kings, his former team. They split the first two games. They go back to LA for game three. They're down 3-1 after two periods in that third game. And Goring said, "When I walked in that room, I looked at the faces and he said, we're done. These guys are staring down defeat one more time." The pressure was getting to them. And he said, "I turned to Clark Gillies, who was my line mate, and said, we've got to go out there and make a difference in this third period. We got to find a way to win this game." They go out in the third period. Gillies scores a goal assisted by Goring. Goring scores the tying goal, and then Ken Morrow wins it in overtime, and they sailed from there on through the playoffs.
Can't let you go without the helmet. Whatever happened to the helmets?
He still has them at home, and spray painted them every time he got moved to
There are
another
two of them,
team.
or just-
He had a couple, yes, and still has them at home, a souvenir.
He's a former Dauphin King as well, and great honor to him. He was now in training camps. They have Team Goring against Team Trotz, and his team won at the training camp.
And he was the missing piece, set the bar for what general managers try to do on deadline day.
It was the Jova Cup in Dauphin. I don't know what kind of helmet the manufacturer that was that he wore, that thing that he had in his head. Brad Treliving and the Calgary Flames in the mix right now.